Okay, Megan, let's go ahead and talk about the problem tree analysis.
Awesome.
A unique template that allows us to choose an objective and then balance the idea of resources and outcomes. Like many of other templates, we of course have access to this video as many times as you'd like to listen to it in the top left-hand side of the board, as well as an easy path home to our hub where you can find other related methods that we've already talked about along our strategic design kit, as well as things we'll reference in this particular video. Again, on the left-hand side of the board are the instructions that Meg and I will narrate through, but at the highest level, I want to bring everyone in this case to our example output. The reason I want to start with the example output is problem tree analysis is one of the most powerful design templates you can use, but sometimes not as top of mind as more popular methods like personas or stakeholder maps.
Exactly.
A problem tree analysis starts with the idea of having an objective. And in this case, Megan, we've chosen the idea of back pain, which unfortunately in a very Zoom and virtual related world, we are seeing more and more of. Then we're gonna have an opportunity to understand both resources and outcomes. Now, resources can be a really broad range of things. And so we've included elements that I'll highlight here around replacing maybe a mediocre chair with a particularly good one, or in a perfect world, maybe moving us from a 5-day work week to a 4-day work week. But how else should I think about resources that might contribute to back pain? Should I think about people in my life? Should I think about physical objects and software, or should everything be on my radar?
It's probably important to have as many things on our radar as possible. When we use a tool like this, we can show our radar screens to each other and say, hey, I think posture is an important resource to have on this board. And you and I can put this out into the world and then look at it together and talk about it. That's the benefit of using a tool like this.
You know, well said, Megan. And in fact, oftentimes when I am working, collaborating in a group, I will start individually brainstorming the resources I choose to manage my back pain, including having a smart monitor or seeing myself as I open up a virtual meeting. And then I'll pass this board or this link along to someone like you, Megan, and then you'll obviously add yours and we'll create relationships. Now, above resources is objective. Now, objective is our core goal that we've already talked about, and above that is the outcomes. So, if I achieve the goal or objective I have here of back pain being relieved, I see a variety of either kind of emotionally leaning outcomes. So I'm more productive, but I'm also less irritable, more calm. Is there any limitation to how I describe ultimately these outcomes that I want? Like, do I have to follow a certain pattern or habit?
It really depends on the problem that you're trying to solve. So there are certain outcomes that are of course going to be more closely related temporally to the solution. And like in this case, there are outcomes that are further away in time from the solution, right? And so this person has chosen to outline their board sort of using that format, right? The things that are immediately affected by having back pain relieved are closer to back pain than the things that are further in the future.
Well, you know, well said, Megan. Okay, so now let's zoom out again and let's head over to our main template. So, do you think I should start with my objective? Do you think I should start with my outcomes? Do you think I should start with my resources? What do you think?
Sometimes it's helpful to start with your objective if you know what that objective is. So you may want to have everyone in the room agree on the same objective before you get started.
Well said. Now then, would you move to resources or outcomes next in your view?
I think I would move to resources next, right? It's important to know, like, what are all of the things that could support that objective?
You know, well said. And then of course the outcomes largely are the combination of the goal utilizing the resources. Now, it's important to note that there is no actual limitation on posted notes that can happen, but at a certain point we don't want to probably have 1,000 posted notes. Are there other exercises that relate to this idea that might help us brainstorm objectives or see what's in fact on our radar?
Yes, there happens to be a method called what's on your radar. We could also use things like voting inside of Miro to sort of help narrow the field down just a little bit from all the sticky notes that we've created to the couple that we want to move over to our board.
Okay, well, let's go back to our example output and use this elusive voting feature you have. Now, as I zoom in on my features, I'm actually going to focus on resources just because that's an area that I could lose some feedback on. So let's go ahead and focus, Megan, on our resources. Our resource section was where we inventoried all the things we have at our disposal. But to your point, that might be a list of literally thousands. If I had traversed my way via the internet and looked on major shopping sites, there's no limitation to the number of chairs, right? Or the type of smart monitor that I could ultimately have. So I'm gonna go ahead and click what looks like a square with a couple of dots on it, which is the voting button. I'm then going to be able to set the number of votes. In this case, we'll keep it at 3, and the amount of time that you and I have to do it. In fact, we're going to do a speed round, Megan, and only make this 1 minute by adjusting the minus sign. Then we're going to actually not turn on the limitation on voting per object. So if you want to use all 3 of your votes on the same Post-it note, you really believe in shorter working hours, like I'll weigh in on, we're going to have to find ourselves on the board.
I'm going to vote for all of my ideas.
All of your ideas. We also have the ability to limit the number of things that someone can vote on a board. So if I only want people to be able to cast votes, in this case on sticky notes, I can go ahead and select that before I click the start button. Once I click the start button, I can go ahead and choose to opt into the voting. This allows everyone to join you when they are ready, as opposed to forcing people from what they're doing into the starting function. By clicking join, I'm gonna now see that I have, in fact, the ability to click any of the plus signs on any of the Post-it notes. So I am gonna vote for shorter working hours and then replace with 2 votes my cheap chair for a good one. I've been holding out forever and ever. I'm gonna wait a couple of extra seconds, even though we had a minute, but I can tell that Megan's already done voted, and I'm gonna go ahead and click end for everyone. Now I'm going to end my session and ultimately wait for my results to be prepared. It turns out, in a really simple and nearly instantaneous way, I now can understand that actually there was 4 votes on the cheap chair with a nicer one replacement mechanism, and only 1 vote for shortening working hours, and ultimately sitting in a healthier manner, putting my shoulders back and up over the period of time. If I click see results, I'll ultimately expand outward and again have a visual orientation of where I'm at. I can edit, label, or of course delete this voting session and ultimately bring new voting sessions as many times as I would like. I'm gonna go ahead and close my board now and zoom out and ask you one really important question, Megan. When and why would a strategy or business leader use this, whether they happen to have a technical or design skill set running their business?
Problem tree analysis is a method that we can use to really help us frame our problem, right? It gives us a way to look at the problem from the standpoint of resources and outcomes. So we can really start to narrow in on what do we actually want to change or work on or do relative to that objective that we have. Is it an outcome solution, or is it something that we want to change at the resources level?
Yeah, really well said, Megan. And in fact, I'll just add a couple of quick notes that I always use when I'm thinking about results. Zooming in our example. The first question I'm asking as maybe a GM or a business unit owner is that I really would like to see if anyone has resources or outcomes that we haven't thought about. You know, I loved your point. I'll just refresh it for everybody else. The big point is maybe, are we aligned on our objective? Is the way we describe our objective framed against the way that people that maybe are suffering from back pain actually describe it? The next thing is I think about the vocabulary and the language that we are using on the outcomes themselves. Are they described in our way of creating value or my customer's way of describing value? If we want to be customer-centered, we probably have to have some degree of overlapping vocabulary and lexicon that we share. And last but not least, it's the relationship that if I see an outcome that I want, but I can't see a resource that's going to provide it, it allows a check and balance mechanism around that central objective in order to keep that general manager, strategist, and business owner all aligned and efficient. Anything else to add, Megan?
I think that's it.
Okay, well, I think we've covered the basics. Thanks again for dialing in and learning a little bit about problem tree analysis. We'll see you in additional videos all throughout the Strategic Design Kit.